Where are all the free drugs that were talked about in middle school assemblies? They lied about so much. Shoot. You don't get them for free, then don't cause wild hallucinations, and people don't think you're cool for doing them. It's like they were trying to talk us into drugs. I remember the police officer bringing in the drug identification kit and showing what all the drugs looked like. I remember in Dare we'd all ask the cop crazy questions like, what if the drug dealer chases you down and makes you take drugs? I asked about the guy wearing a bandana I saw near my house, which told my white suburban self he must be in a gang. The cop asked where I live, and when I told him, he said there had been activity there. Years later I realized the activity was my post's father selling meth. That is one of the biggest twists I have seen on Reddit. Pull up to my house, I'll smoke you out if you're chill. Handshake. You Canadian? There has been exactly one day in my life where drugs were being handed out for free. The day Jerry Garcia died. Even street level dealers were handing out free dimes to those in need. But aside from that day, yeah, drugs cost money. I still miss Jerry, jam band and EDM concerts. If you're talkative with people, you'll struggle to leave sober. How do you hear each other over the music? Lol. If you had friends, you'd find that sharing drugs while hanging out is not uncommon. Sir, I will say it a million times. Our DARE officer in 5th grade told us the most realistic shoot about smoking too much weed. He was like, it's not going to kill you or even hurt you, but I have a buddy who has no ambition and lives with his parents because all he wants to do is get high. Made me realize to only do anything in moderation. Well, that and seeing my alcoholic family members pass out at family gatherings after chugging SAR travel mugs of Windsor Diets. That being said, there was always someone to smoke with if you wanted, or do lines in high school. A lot of dudes just wanted someone to hang with while they did it. My 5th grade DARE program involved a presentation that I can only describe as fantastic drugs and where to find them. It involved close-ups of various ecstasy tablets plus names and addresses of local clubs where people were supposedly selling it, interspersed with pictures of people at said clubs having what looked like an absolutely baller time. Oh, and at the end there were a few slides devoted to teaching us how to spot a drug dealer in a crowd, you know, so we could avoid them. Unfortunately, the clubs in question closed down before I was old enough to go. Clubbing turned out to be not my thing in any way, shape or form anyhow, but my dorky little middle school ass was devastated when the two biggest ones closed after Officer Friendly made them sound like so much fun. Phase 1. Get school children curious about drugs. I've got a mate that was given a free half gram of coke by the local dealer every time he spent a week trying to get clean. Next thing you know, he dropped a couple grand in a month. Samples are a common tactic. Schools often just misunderstood what free drugs really meant. I used to chop. I would mostly sell weed, shrooms. The free drugs are at my place. It's only weed though, and we have to smoke together. Don't worry, we'll watch something funny afterwards, like killer clones from outer space. If you're willing to use the vaporizer, then we can talk during. That's just the first time though. Next time you pay the green tax. Why can't Tinder conversations be like this? I got offered free drugs in high school. You didn't hang out with the right people. I've gotten plenty of free drugs over the years I partied. I've gotten free drugs from friends of friends. Only one time had a stranger randomly offer me drugs. I used to do drugs. I still do. But I used to, too. Mitch Hedberg. Oh, they're out there. You just aren't attractive enough. It's cool testers and dealers only do that for crack or heroin because it'll get the fiends lining up. The free shoot is often laced also with fet because people will think it's good dope. Yeah, that doesn't usually happen either though, lol. I was led to believe high school would have more free samples than Costco on a Sunday. Now we're just saying no to vaccines and antibiotics. You must not be a hot chick. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Paying for them is getting expensive. Pokémon cards were the crack of my middle school years. Theft, violence, addiction. It was a goddamn war zone out there. All for a shiny Charizard. I hate to break it to you, but they were there. You just weren't cool enough to be offered them. The closest I ever got to this happened early September of 2020, possibly, as I was walking back from the school I teach at, with a mask on, which means my facial hair is not visible, so my generally youthful face and lack of height shine through pretty strongly. I walked by a man in a car who was smoking pot. He called out, "Hey, yo, do you go to school name?" I replied, "I teach there." He looked visibly deflated and said never mind. I'm not sure what else his intentions could have been. Fear all in Republican parents' nightmares. Knew a kid in high school. He was on the wrong side of the ASD spectrum. The side where he was just a total asshole to anyone who tried to be his friend. The kid had a lot of money though and realized he could make friends by giving out free drugs. Backpack was filled in the mornings, empty in the evenings. I had homeroom with him, winking face with stuck out tongue. I was offered Molly once at a show in exchange for cutting in the bathroom line. Fun night. I moved to Oregon in 2004 and haven't paid for weed since. Oregon. My final answer is Oregon. I was a teenager some years before Dare, but yeah, when I was in junior high, there were stories about kids smoking pot in class, having sex in the halls, etc. And if anything like that ever happened, with one exception I did witness in study hall, I don't know anything about it. Oh, yeah, I was told to expect people walking up to me saying, "Wanna try drugs?" and someone else wanna try drugs, etc. How do you think the teachers cope? You get them sometimes if you're attractive enough. They acted like some stranger was gonna give us little kids free LSD and cocaine, or when people would put edibles in Halloween candy or mayo. Gotta know the right people. I got and gave free drugs often. I think the funniest thing about all that bullshit in middle school was that they used peer pressure to tell you how bad peer pressure was. Looking back, it pretty much boiled down to peer pressure is amazing, as long as it's to indoctrinate you with all the shit that the teacher agrees with. When I was 17 or 18 I went to Taco Bell around midnight with a friend. Waiting in the drive-thru, some random dude came up and knocked on our window. Being dumb teenagers we lowered the window. Dude tosses a good-sized looking bag of white powder in my friend's lap and asks us to buy him food. We say no and hand the bag back to him. He gets pissed off and tried the next car behind us. Very confusing moment for us. We assumed drugs but didn't realize how lucky we were since he didn't do anything else to us. You a cop? I don't think they meant off the street free, but I've never purchased anything in my life. I've had friends and girlfriends just offer me weed and pills and never ask for money. That was for cool and or hot people. You know what is funny? I've been offered free drugs a lot. Mostly just weed. This is because the drug dealers I was friends with thought I was too depressed. Lol. I've always loved this joke, but for real, everyone from friends to family have offered me drugs. No, my family has not offered me hardcore shoot, but a good example is at 14 few friends started smoking or dipping. Being friendly, they'd ask if I'd wanna try. As I got older it turned to shoot like pot and once coke. I'll admit him that friend that offered younger friends free booze. Slightly off topic, in all honesty the best advice I got for saying no, aside from occasional drinking at small parties I didn't do anything as a teen, was saying no thanks from the Wizard of No I saw when I was in like first grade. He made an interesting point, if I remember it correctly, if they're really your friend they won't care or something like that. I like how we knew nothing about drugs, not even what they were. Then they came and told us the names, effects, what they look like, where to find dealers in town, etc. Like we would have had no idea if they hadn't taught us all about IT. I've been offered free weed a few times, sometimes by strangers. When I worked at a mall, the manager of the restaurant next door offered me a hit of her joint. Sometimes I've been smoked out for giving folks a ride. Once a classmate just offered me some for fun. In high school parking lots, out of school get-togethers, all the free vape, cigarettes, weed, and more you could ever want. Not even being sarcastic. I only had like one encounter with someone offering me weed that was near identical to how their programs described them. I was in college and it was around 11 PM when I was walking down the street to grab some soda from the convenience store. This guy stepped out from an alley in front of me. He looked younger than me, and he was dressed in a neon green hoodie, a backwards baseball cap, and pajama pants with penguins on them. He asked, "Hey, you're looking for some bud?" Me, being a sheltered dumberson thinking he was referring to Budweiser, just said, "What? Ick now, a little," and he made a gesture pretending to smoke a blunt. "Sorry, I don't have any cash on me." See, or I blurted out before speed walking around him and down the street. I never saw him again on the way back, or ever since. My ex friend gave him free cocaine a few times. Now that same friend sells him crack. So find a friend that wants to restart their crack business in a new area. This joke is old and not accurate. People will give free drugs in an attempt to get you hooked. This happens a lot with things like heroin and meth. Am I the only person on Reddit who regularly got offered drugs at parties, concerts and raves for free? I'm not even that social. I just assume I look like a guy really needs to get high. Are you a pretty girl? I've seen so much free drugs offered to pretty girls over the years. I know a few girls that have no idea how much drugs cost. No hate because it isn't their fault that guys keep supplying them. Public universities. I worked at a bar and constantly had people offering me free drugs. Multiple guys handed me a pre-rolled joint in a little plastic tube at the end of the night that I smoked on my trip hauling the trash to the dumpster. Work in the entertainment industry and you'll find drugs bonus points if you're on a cruise ship, behind your phone screen, on the news, on YouTube and everywhere else companies can find something to monetize or gamify. Everywhere? I feel like almost any time someone had something they wanted to share it with people or see them do it. I get free drugs all the time. In your Halloween candy. Apparently, I think being told in 3rd grade about drugs is what started a lot of people on drugs and try them. Of all education to be taught, what drugs look like and how to take ruined a lot of kids' lives to later be adults. Proved there was more than a warning of drugs. I once browsed the drugstores on the dark web and they offered a free trial of heroin for some reason. Handed out by men who think you might shag them. Try a gay bar. They're so cute. When I was in rehab we would find their shirts at the local thrift store and wear them for irony's sake. We had to stop BC a new client hated Dare so much and everything it did that they had a fit regarding our Dare shirt Fridays. In middle school unfortunately, it's been in the news that a 13-year-old just died on fentanyl. I was a stoner all through high school and my mid-20s, but I couldn't have found even dirt weed at my junior high school. I'm not saying it 100% wasn't there for sure, but it wasn't overt like it was in high school. Some offers I accepted, others I didn't. Privileges of being an attractive female at fun parties. Dead as if someone offered me free drugs I'm taking them. I've had lots of people buy me free alcohol because I lied to them that I don't drink. Maybe work in your social skills? I have yet to pay for any of the weed, coke, or shrooms I've had over the years. In grandma's medicine chest. Trust me, you have to have money to afford one and the dealer who sold me weed told me not to get in hard drugs and stick to weed only. Really great guy also he knows I'm freaking depressed he got his buddies to only sell me good quality weed for low price. I am always make friend easily and after New York allowed the first marijuana dispensary except you need a doctor's note which I can easily get for $400 a month I got hooked into legalized weed. Guess who got me this info? My dealer who end up turned around his life including his dealer friends who ended becoming mechanics or went to college. One dealer became my go-to mechanic really awesome guy to be around except no weed since it's all legal now. Go to a party and tell people you've never had the drug they are using. Most of the time you will get a free sample. I mean I've given away many ounces of free mushrooms, but that's because I have too many of them. In the 70s. They were floating around Cracker Jacks boxes and outside schoolyards by pedis. Honestly if you have the right friends they'll share. I was broke ASF at one point and a lot of my friends would share smokes with me whenever I needed them. The teachers took them all to come up with their perceptions of the world and how it works. Eyes. It's in your parents' medicine cabinet. Yup, the DARE program told us where to look. I get free drugs often but I have really generous friends. I suppose. Up my ass if you can find them officer. Don't you see? The war on drugs worked. We are all saved from free drugs. Usually at a buddy's house. You are not hot enough to be offered free drugs. I'm beautiful and I can pick up my morning coffee without someone surreptitiously slipping a dank nug into my flowing beard. They were offered to me all the time in high school though I think it's just because I constantly refused free drugs so it became a challenge for the other kids to try and convince me also it was pretty much exclusively weed. Which is barely illicit if we're being honest. Except for one instance of Pingus and a separate incident of cocaine which turned out to be crushed Nodos, caffeine pills. I find bubes are required for this to happen. I've just been driving chillin' minding my own business and have had dudes hanging out the window offering me weed and various other things I'm sure what they are. I had a roommate that had a bag with 1000 XTC pills. We could just take a handful when we went to a party and share them with friends. What do you say if a stranger offers you free drugs? You say thank you because drugs are expensive. Trapped in the early 1960s when the heroin dealers wanted to give you a taste. Red Ribbon Week was for free Slurpees when you exchange your ribbon. You're hanging around with the wrong people. Or maybe right people. There's tons of free drugs out there to be offered. Especially coke. I get offered that all the time and I don't take it. It's free the first time so they get you hooked. Right? Double quotation mark. Where's Fred Flintstone and SpongeBob? Same place. When I was in middle school, they made it clear that only the first try is free. If you know the right people and happen to befriend those people, oftentimes you'll get free shouts. It's usually the kids you don't expect. Everywhere. Most people do drugs. Most people are decent people. The trick is talking with random people, and if they are cool you hang out. That's it. Just talk and leave if you get uncomfortable. I've been offered free drugs twice in my life. Once after my first car accident at 16 and I had to tell the guy thanks for the offer, but cops are already on the way. And the other time was straight out of our after school special. At a party where 3 dudes cornered me and literally used the line "we all did it." It's cool and super fun while they were all a couple bumps in on ketamine. Never got to have a fun free drugs experience though. Heroin and crack. Primarily, I lived in the ghetto so the threat of street drugs was always around us. In my belly. But in all seriousness, middle school drug education is as hell. I didn't even have a health class, but in high school that shoot was on point from effect to how it interacted with your body. They were listing drugs that I didn't even know, like DMT, which I now know and I'm cool with, but at the time I was like WTF. The biggest problem in high school drug education is if the drug had 2 names they thought it was 2 drugs, like DMT, ayahuasca. There are free drugs. Unfortunately that means typically you don't need cash, but you will have to do some other things. That was only meant for the girls. You have to collect 10 crisp packets and send away for them. I went to a rave once. A guy offered me a pixie stick in the bathroom, but I didn't have a toothbrush with me so I didn't accept the candy. A year or so later I had a moment.